Okay, it's 3 o'clock. Let's see. Yes, we do have 9 people. We'll give it one more minute before we start. Okay, we're going to start now. It's 3:01 and I want to say hi and welcome to everyone, wherever you're dialing in from. My name is Anne Rose. I am the co-chair of the Siblings Working Group at Inclusion International, alongside Charlotte, who cannot be here with us today. And I'm also a sibling to a sister with an intellectual disability. So a lot of the conversation we're going to be having today is not theoretical for a lot of us on here, it's lived. So today we are marking International Siblings Day, and we're doing that with a conversation that is centered on the theme seen, heard, and valued. So siblings are represented in almost every part of the journey, in appointments, in routines, in decisions that are made, in emotional labor. But very often we are not fully recognized in how systems are designed or how support is delivered. So today is about bringing that into focus. So for siblings who are joining us, this is about recognizing your experience and understanding that your voice matters. For professionals and organizations who are joining us, this is about listening in a way that leads to action, not just awareness. So this will be an honest conversation. We're not going to be giving polished answers. We're here to talk about what it actually feels, where things are not working, and then what needs to change. So for the best use of everyone's time today, we will be using the Q&A function. So please, if you have any questions, just pop it in the Q&A section. Before we go into the discussions, I would like each of our amazing panelists to introduce themselves briefly. So if you can share your name, where you're joining us from, the age gap between you and your sibling. So I will start from the top of my screen, which has Inge on it.
Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here today. My name is Inge Vodderberg. I work at Inclusion Europe as a researcher, but more importantly, I'm a sibling to Esther. Esther and I have a 3 to 4 year age gap, and she lives in the Netherlands, where I'm originally from, but I am joining you from Belgium.
Thank you, Inge. Lovely to meet you. Well, I do know you as part of the Sibling Network. Then we will go to Eva.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aoife. I am from Ireland, but currently based in Brussels, working in disability advocacy and policy at the EU level. And I'm a sibling to my sister, Roisin, who has an intellectual disability, autism, type 1 diabetes, and Addison's disease. And Roisin was born when I was 13 years old, so quite a big age gap. But even still, our relationship is very close. And that makes it all the more difficult to not being in the same country as her. But we talk often, and I go home as much as I can.
Awesome. Thanks, Eva. Percy.
Hello, I'm Percy Carter. I am a teacher and legal researcher, and again, very proud sister of somebody who has autism and an intellectual disability. My brother Joaquin, we call him Keeney, is very high support needs, and he is 3.5 years younger than me. However, he is the third of 7 children. So he is within a tribe and an older brother and younger brother to many.
Thanks, Percy. Noor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Noor, and I'm from Pakistan, but I was born and raised in the United Arab Emirates. I just recently graduated, so I've been working, volunteering in organizations as an advocate. And my brother is 16 years old. He has low support needs, and our age gap is 7 years. And he's been living with me, with my family. And we both are very close. I'm the closest to him among my other siblings. And we just love going out together. Yeah.
Thanks, Noor. Fael?
Hi everyone, my name is Faela Chengodeni. I come from Kenya. I have a sister with an intellectual disability. We have a 3-year age gap. I've been very involved in sibling work. I'm one of the former co-chairs of the sibling working group. As well, just very happy to be here and very happy to share everything. Thanks.
Thanks, Fael. So thank you, everyone. As you can already hear, the diversity and experience in our panelists, but also the shared thread that we're all siblings. So now we will go to our first question. And again, a lot of our questions are centered around the theme, which is seen, heard, and valued. So my first question is, how has being a sibling shaped how you see the world, or the work you do? So I'll come first to you, Aoife.
So as I mentioned, I became the sibling of a person with an intellectual disability during my teen years. So I experienced quite a clear shift in family life and responsibilities during that time. And I was old enough and mature enough to see the shift in how the world treated my family before and after Roisin and her diagnosis. And that includes everything from the lack of services that were there and available to help Roisin from the state, such as education, which meant that Roisin just couldn't achieve the same quality of life that was so unquestionably handed to me and my brother, to the just general isolation and rejection from those around us who didn't understand Roisin. And I have to admit that as a young teenager trying to make sense of the world, it was really heartbreaking to see it treat the person that I love the most in the world like they were less deserving than everyone else around me. But through that pain and always seeing Roisin persist regardless, I was led down a path of disability policy work and advocacy, which I'm lucky enough to work in now full time. So I have to say, thanks to Roisin, I am always surrounded by inspiring and accepting people who believe in a world that I wished for when I was a teenage carer to my sister.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Aoife. Noor, same question.
Thank you. So I can relate to Aoife since when my brother was diagnosed when he was a teenager as well. So I had a lot of difficulty and challenges because I did not even have the support for my brother. So it was kind of like a path where I was learning a lot for myself and for him as well. And at that time, he needed more support. He had a lot more challenges compared to now. So it was quite difficult, and I tried to go into spaces where I can meet different families that also have children, maybe people with disabilities, because I couldn't find really siblings when I was younger. It was quite difficult to do that during my teenage years, and that kind of pushed me into advocacy. And I started to volunteer as an advocate in different organizations. And the more I did, I started off with because of my brother, so I can get more information from people and try to see, how things work. I just started off, even though I had no clue of what's going on. But when I started, it was just such a beautiful journey, and I just kept on learning. I just kept on meeting people that just connected me with so many people that helped me with my brother today. And he is so much independent compared to how he was a few years ago. And that also kind of my relationship with my brother also helped me change the perspective on some systems, for example, even education systems. I had a a very difficult time with dealing with school systems because in mainstream schools in the UAE, we do have special education need departments. However, it varies from school to school and person to person. And I had decided to remove him from the school. Also, he wanted to, and I homeschooled him and did individual learning. And now he's able to do so much more better. So it also helped me show that how the education system needs to be redesigned, reconstructed. So in a nutshell, it's all about how I can never imagine I would have been here without his support and without him as well, because at first I never knew about much about even his diagnosis, much about inclusion, but it all started from him and now it has become a passion. And I'm hoping that in future I will be able to contribute more to the society and also in the community. Yeah. So
Thank you, Noor. Percy.
So I have a very opposite experience to the two of them, where I was under 6 years old when my brother was diagnosed. So my entire early childhood and life became shaped by my brother having a disability, and the education and awareness of what autism and a disability is. It was just a very different time. I remember doing all of these diets that he would go on because they told us it would be better. I remember spending at least 2 hours every day following him around, mimicking everything he did and said, because therapists told me it would make us form a sibling relationship. I remember having to explain to grown adults what autism was at all, because if you ask anybody who was really working and or living or existing in spaces of autism before 2006, 2007, it's very, very different than it is today. So I think that he, from childhood, shaped me to be a very open-minded and pretty chill person. If you live with somebody who has a severe disability from a very early age, you will be pretty relaxed in adulthood. But it's also just now, as an educator, having a younger brother with a disability has been life-changing, because I learned what education can really be and what it should be for all people, and especially for persons with disabilities. And teaching my brother how to speak in daily life has helped me be a teacher now, teaching children from all over the world at an international school with a range of languages, and having some students with disabilities as well. My brother put me in such an amazing position and blessed me with so much knowledge that has facilitated my career as an educator and as a human rights professional.
Thank you so much, all three of you. As you can see, what's coming through is that siblings are deeply shaped by this role, but that experience is not always recognized or understood by others. So for those listening, particularly professionals, I guess the question is, where are siblings influencing the system but not being acknowledged within it? So we'll move on to our second question, which is around the theme being heard. So, what advice would you give to families about nurturing strong, supportive, lifelong relationships between siblings? I'll come to you first, Fael.
Thank you. So when we think around what advice would give to families, I'd first start by saying that I think we all understand, being family members, that it's not easy to find out that, there's a disability diagnosis in the family. So we need to understand, especially parents, that it is something that is new and something that they're essentially maybe thrown into the deep end. I found disability within the family. My sister was 3 years old, and later I only started understanding when I was a bit older, so it has its difficulties. So I would say at first that parents should work towards some sense of normalcy, that, it should be not business as usual, but almost sort of like the family should continue running, the family should continue with its values, things should not stop, because many of the times, because of the processes that families go through, a lot of the things that were happening kind of stop. Going to relatives, of course, that may stop. So trying to return some sense of normalcy is one of the things. The other thing is, avoid having situations where you feel that, when the depression hits for the families, most of the time, there's no stability. And so that affects all the siblings within the family, because many of the siblings really want to understand what is going on. Sometimes it's a taboo to talk about it within the family, so it gets to be hard to talk about it outside of the family. So, and again, treating the children equally and ensuring that everyone within the family feels that they have space to talk about maybe their fears, their worries about, there being maybe a disability in the family, or there being maybe issues that are happening outside of the family that the siblings maybe want to talk about, maybe things they've seen that, the community is doing, or that extended family members are doing. So having that open channel of communication where families can actually sit down and talk about what is happening within the family and how is it changing the dynamics of the family, and what can the family do to ensure that they continue to be a strong unit and they continue to survive whatever is going on. Most of the time in the African context, you'll find that the women or the female siblings are the one that will take on a lot of the roles in terms of support and caregiving to the entire family. But again, as well, if there's a disability in the family as well, they would have to support as well with that. So ensuring that these dynamics do not look at gender roles and do not have any gender roles, that these dynamics should be equal for all the siblings, that each sibling should have some sort of a role, including the sibling with the disability, because most of the time they too grow up feeling like they don't have enough space, or they can't really share their own self with their other siblings. So just ensuring that there's that synergy with everyone, focusing on therapy. I think I've talked around how people are feeling a lot, and it's because most of the time we found that, especially here in Africa, many of the siblings that I talk to, they face a lot of mental health issues. They face a lot of mental struggles with, there's a lot that happens. There's the being ostracized from family dynamics, that's extended family, community, friends. You might lose any number of people just as when they find out that there's disability in the family. So just ensuring that people's thought processes, mental health is being taken care of. Again, open channels of communication and focusing on making, the immediate family the priority. Many times I've seen families focusing on like damage control, focusing on ensuring that people still feel that the family is valuable. I think families should focus first inward and ensure that everyone in the family kind of has their place. The child with a disability, whatever they need, that they have their needs met, and the other siblings as well to have their needs met, so that everyone in the family can actually be nurtured to be someone. And again, get support from support groups and support group forums that will support specifically families, self-advocates, and siblings separately, just to ensure that, there's some sibling support going on as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Fael. Inge, same question.
Yes, when I was thinking about this question of how can families nurture the relationship between siblings, my first reaction was, don't nurture it. And that sounds weird. But what I mean by it is don't force it. I've had parents come up to me after I spoke as me being a sibling, and they ask, how do I make sure that my other kids will take care of my disabled kids when they're older? And I was like, first of all, let it go. Because if you force it on them, if you force that they build a relationship, like no good, healthy, stable relationship is built by force.
Yeah.
So my first advice for families, for parents, is focus on creating an environment where everyone, including the siblings and the child with a disability, feels seen, heard, and valued. Because often siblings, in my experience, grow up in the shadow of their disabled sibling. And I have an example of this. When I would be walking with my mom down the street, and for me, like we would meet a stranger, they would always ask my mom, oh, how's your daughter doing? And both my mom and I knew 10 out of 10 times they were referring to my sister. They would never be asking about me. So my mom, almost every time, would not miss a beat and say, "Oh, Inge, she's doing great. Thank you for asking." And that meant a lot because, of course, we cannot change the world. We cannot change that others are constantly asking about their siblings, are constantly putting the attention on them. But I was very lucky that my parents realized that I was in need of attention and time too, and that they tried to make, and of course, parents are not superhumans, they cannot make up for everything, but they tried their best to make sure that I also felt seen, heard, and valued. That there is support for all the children, and in the Netherlands, at least, there is quite a lot of support for the children with intellectual disabilities, and then there's a very little bit support for the parents, but there's almost no support for the siblings. Well, they are in that house too. And it goes two ways. They both want to be part of the support that is offered to their sibling because they care and they don't want to feel left out. And at the same time, we also need our own support.
Absolutely.
So I think for families, making sure that there is room and space for everyone, just like Fayel also said, I think that makes sure that there's a basis where there's no resentment. I can imagine if there was not such a space made for me as well, that I could maybe grow resentment towards my sister, even though she also did not do anything wrong. And having this solid basis is the best thing you can have for a strong, healthy relationship between siblings to build.
Thank you so much, Inge and Fayal. And really important what you said there, Inge, about, don't nurture it. So I guess just allow it to, happen naturally. And thanks, Fayal. Again, very important about how, how family raise, children and their siblings shapes how we communicate, how sharing responsibilities, and whether siblings feel included or, overlooked. So we'll move on to the next theme, which is valued. So what is the one thing organizations think that they're doing well for siblings, but are not actually, where are they missing the mark? And I will start with you, Percy.
So for this, it's not that I have a difficult time answering. I had a difficult time thinking of any instance where an organization did anything directly for a sibling. Especially growing up, that was completely removed. And not to say that these organizations aren't amazing. I will never speak down on any of the amazing people that helped us. However, a lot of my experience being a sibling in this sense was adults trying to humanize my brother in a way that would allow us to develop a relationship. And there was an underlying ableism there in some ways, even if it wasn't intended. It was like, oh, you're a sibling, your parents are the caretakers, and your parents are taking on these roles, but you're a sister, so you can play with your brother. You should do this, and then he might remember your name. Like when I was doing this in 2006, 2007, 2008, throughout my childhood and teen years, it was very much trying to facilitate me forming a relationship, which, like Inge said, you can't. I remember just wanting to scream and say, my brother knows my name. He's my brother, and he's actually annoying. We have a sibling relationship. We fight. He's nonverbal, but we fight. Trust. And just seeing that siblings are able to have realistic, normal relationships while also needing help learning how to be a stronger caretaker. I would have loved for somebody in an organization to say, hey, if you see your younger brother has displaying these physical signs, he could be having a stroke or a seizure in this moment, and this is how to care for it. If your brother has an accident in public, this is a good way to manage it, because if you're an adult, if you're a parent with somebody who may have an accident in public, which is a very common issue that we deal with, it's one thing. When you're a 13, 14-year-old, you want to be able to do activities to go out in the world, but you also need practical skills. This is specific for high support needs, but I would say that actually teaching siblings how to manage the real day-to-day nasty bits of having having a sibling with high support needs. Also, just encouragement for going out in public with your sibling as well. That might sound like a small one. And I didn't say before, I'm from New York City, but it was sometimes nerve-wracking for me to go out alone. So I would say practical assistance for younger siblings. Encouraging community-based support. Everything is okay, and we will help you navigate this.
Thank you. Noor, same question.
So, where I live in the UAE, we do not really have a lot of, I don't think any organizations that specifically support only siblings. I do know a few, but it's not quite a lot. It's not widely known and accessible. And usually it's also because of the visibility as well. It's like the support does not reach us because it's not very visible and highlighted compared to for parents, especially when they say that they support families. They usually try to include parents only, not siblings. I've been to so many spaces where I was directly asked, "Where are your parents?" Even though like in education institution, in centers, in any places, I was usually pushed forward from teenage years to go to those spaces, to go to those organizations, because I was much more like it was just I just took on that role of having that. And every time I would always be questioned, "Where are your parents?" And they would not listen to you in my opinions. And apart from other thing about the visibility and the awareness, usually when I look at the organizations, there you will see on their websites that they support families, they support parents, but you never see we support siblings as well. We offer, services for siblings. And that makes it difficult to even harder to reach to younger siblings, because I personally had a more difficult time when I was younger, just like how Percy also mentioned. During when I was in my teenage years, I had to figure it all on my own by observing my brother, that what triggers him, what does he do when this happens, what does he do when that happens, and trying to just observe and understand him. And through that, I tried to make a plan for him, try to understand him, and try to teach him life skills, day-to-day life skills, all on my own, which were not we not I never had resources for. And second, when it comes again about visibility, right now a lot of organizations over here also do a lot of media representations, like podcasts, testimonials, but it's usually always from parents, always from people with disabilities, which again which is of course important, but since media is so powerful, it shapes the awareness. So since there is so much lack of visibility around siblings generally in the community, that just, does not highlight how important sibling roles is in the society. And the biggest example of that is the International Siblings Day. I honestly did not know this day existed until I knew about this panel, and I joined the siblings working group from the conference. I did not when I saw the conference that it was happening here, and I saw the workshop that's a siblings workshop, I was so surprised, and it was quite, I was surprised, and then I just came to the conference. I learned about the siblings group, and that's why I'm also here today. So I think prioritizing and highlighting about those spaces is really important, since that only leads to creating the community. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much, Noor. Aoife.
Thanks. Yeah, so to sort of, I suppose, the way I would synopsize what Percy and Nora said is what organizations can do is move beyond seeing siblings as just adjacent to the person with an intellectual disability and actually start to recognize us as carers. We're not carers in the exact same way that parents are, but we are carers in a particular way. And if that could be recognized, then there is a whole wealth of knowledge to be gained from that. Our perspective is lived and long term and deeply relational. The sibling relationship is unique. And we see what works for our sibling over a lifetime, and we're there during that lifetime. So if that could just be recognized from the beginning of us as carers, it would be amazing for the disability rights movement. It would be amazing for the sibling, and it would be hugely beneficial for the siblings, the siblings of the person with the intellectual disability. I mean, as Inga said, there's a general lack of support for families of disabled people anyway. But the fact that there is virtually nothing for siblings is really telling, because we don't really have a label. We just have siblings. And though our inside is overlooked, so since our inside is overlooked, I think that a key step would be creating meaningful opportunities for siblings to contribute. But in saying that as well, and I would like to just preface it with saying that it's also important that organizations recognize the diversity of the sibling experience. So not all siblings are carers, not all siblings want to be or have to be, but we all have a perspective that is unique and can strengthen the inclusion movement if it's genuinely listened to.
Thank you so much, Aoife. Yes. So I've got one more question. So given that we've talked about, what organizations, I guess, are missing, how can service providers better include siblings in the support that they provide, particularly where adult siblings are involved in, care and support? Inge, I'll throw this to you.
Thank you. I have two main pillars as part of my answer, and the first one might sound more controversial than I mean to. Siblings don't bear responsibility to provide care and support. And what I mean with that is we did not choose to have a child. We did not choose to have a sibling, but we are still in this position. And I find it important to start with this, specifically talking about what would we say to service providers? Because in the past, when I spoke with service providers because of my work, and I would tell about siblings and basically remind them that we exist, sometimes, not everyone, but sometimes the person I would be talking to would get a glimmer in their eyes. And one specific man literally said, "Oh, so siblings are underutilized resources." And my response to that was, well, we are not free labor that you have not yet used. We are also not another potential person you can sell something to, but we exist. And like Aoife said, we are also not one group that's all the same. We want to be part of the care and support in different ways. So don't look at us as underutilized resources, but do realize that we are here. So instead of thinking of how can we use siblings or how can we, I don't know, sell them something, instead realize that we have been part of the care and support for our siblings for the majority of our lives. I have the first example that my family has of me supporting and advocating for my sister was when I was 4 years old. I've been doing this for 24 years. for the first time, like when Esther moved out and is now living at a supported living situation with a service provider, I had already been doing this for 20 years. So realize that we are already a part of it, even though you're not having conversations with us. Because when service providers speak about family, they mean parents. And when they mean parents, they completely forget that we are there too. So my biggest point to service providers is realize we are already part of the conversation and already have a seat for us at the table for when we as a sibling are ready or want to be a part and sit down. But have that space ready.
Brilliant. Thank you, Inge. Fael?
Yes, listening to you, Inge, I really agree with everything that you're saying. I will say recognizing our role as siblings, just exactly as Inge said. I think many of the time service providers look at us as either a by the way or a crutch, something that they can always, what is wrong with it? I can give an example of going to the hospital with my sister. They'll always speak to me. They'll always ask me what's going on. And I know it's the same for even my other siblings or family members. So it's more of them recognizing us as people and adopting a human rights-based approach to how they're working with us, because most of the time service providers will always lean towards the medical model. And that's why when talking about how to involve service providers, it's always a very touchy subject, because many times service providers will go towards a fix-it type mode, where they're thinking, how can we fix the situation? Less of how can we ensure that there's learning, cohesion, resources, everything that everyone in this situation needs, whether it's the person with an intellectual disability, the sibling, or any other family member. What would they need? So packages towards families, a package for siblings, a package for the person with an intellectual disability, also supporting us to understand disability, because many of the times using a human rights-based approach, and I say this because like Inge, I've been advocating for my sister and with my sister for many years, and over 2 decades now. And many of the times you'll find that, people with disabilities will have a very difficult time expressing themselves, having any sort of say with anything about their bodies or about themselves when it comes to service provision. Most of the time, it's a one-size-fits-all, and they do it for every single person with disability. So looking at giving us resources, looking at explaining to us what disability is, looking at ensuring that as siblings, we understand what the disability of our person is, because, and again, my train of thought had gone away, but what I was trying to explain is that many of the times people with siblings will have difficulty understanding the exact supports that our siblings with disabilities need, even though we live with them, even though some things will need to be explained. So this should be part of their roles, providing resources, understanding our role, adopting a human rights-based approach model towards all the work that they're doing with us, just to ensure that nobody's rights is being infringed upon, and we are not subsequently being made into the carers.
That is amazing. No, thank you so much, Inge and Fael. I mean, this is where the gap, kind of becomes clear, because sometimes it's not always lack of effort, but often the gap between intention and impact. And if siblings don't feel seen, heard, or valued, then something in the system's not working, clearly. So I'm going to be asking each of you one short question. And because, again, we've got some time, there's also been a question in Q&A, which I've tried to answer, but I'd also like to bring that to the panel. If I was to go all the way around, and I will start again from Inge, so I know you're just top of my screen, so default, I have to go to you. What is the best thing about being a sibling of someone with an intellectual disability?
Oh, first, I want to say this best thing is my sister herself. Like, with or without her intellectual disability, I of course never met her without it, but she is my best friend and she is amazing. But if I zoom out a little bit, I think being a sibling of someone with an intellectual disability taught me to look at the world differently, with more empathy, patience, and creativity.
Awesome. Thank you. Aoife?
I would have to say for me, it's quite similar to Inga's. It's the perspective that it brings. So when Roisin was little, we learned very fast that in order to be able to build a relationship with her and relate to her, we would have to understand her way of seeing the world. So very early on, she taught me that it's always worth trying to understand different ways of relating and existing in the world because there's so much to be learned from those other perspectives. And yeah.
Thank you. Percy?
So I would say it's really just watching my brother learn. So when he has been diagnosed as completely nonverbal many times. However, that is not the case. Through years and education and persistence at home, he has learned over 200 words, and we are at a point where he is beginning to speak almost in complete sentences. This progress is not linear. He made a lot of progress, had a stroke around 13 years old, lost almost all of that progress. But we continue to build it. And recently, as of about a year and a half ago, he has actually learned to write his name and I love you. And watching him learn to write when they told us he would never have the capacity to even learn the alphabet, that it would be unlikely if he spoke more than 10 words. So to see him literally write the words I love you in a note to me, it just is such a moment of pride, but it also feels kind of like honestly, like a screw you to the court systems of New York, who told us he would never do this. They literally denied his legal right to an education off the basis that he had no capacity to progress. So look at him now.
Oh, thank you. Noor, I'll come to you next.
So regarding I have two brothers, and the younger one is neurodivergent, so I am closest to him, and I would say it's something that he's taught me so many things, like how to be basically patient, how to see world in different ways, how to think differently sometimes, and that has just been a beautiful journey. Like if I really think about it, it's also hard to say it in words sometimes because of how different and close our relationship is. And I'm just so grateful to have him with me. Yeah. So.
Thanks. Mayal?
Yes, I would say for me it has been amazing. There's nothing that I would change about my sister. We are very close, always have been, and I just for me, yes, I have noticed that there is a disability, but ever since knowing her, she's always been a big sister to me. She's always been someone that I can run to. She's always been someone that I can talk to, someone that I can share my secrets with, and vice versa. I also think that one of the major things for me has been how much we've grown together. I've seen her from a shy girl who mostly does not want to maybe stand up for herself or speak up, to someone who really speaks up, stands up for herself, speaks in conferences. She's a Bridge alumni, Bridge CRPD's SDGs. She's one of the facilitators. These are amazing things that I've gotten to experience with her, travel with her, see her actually growing, and of myself, see myself growing career-wise. I work for Kenya Association of the Intellectually Handicapped, same as her, but also understand myself, learn about my own disability and neurodivergence. And so I think having her in my life is something that I would never change, and I'm very proud to be her sister. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, just to add to what all of you have said, again, as someone with a sister with, an intellectual disability, I think it's also reshaped for me how I see people. I've learned to be really patient, have perspective that actually matters. And again, one of the good things, because I'm not a really patient person, so that's very big for me. But it's also helped me to strip away a lot of the noise that you kind of get in the world, and it gives, it's given me a clearer sense of what connection actually looks like. So, like you said, Inge, it's that relationship itself. It's the fact that she's my sister, and as Percy said before, it hasn't always been easy, because we do have our squabbles, but it's been real. And it's also taught me how to show up consistently, for somebody. So the question we had in the Q&A, and I'm going to throw this out to anyone in the panel, please feel free to pick it up. Um, Anat, Anat, Anil, I hope I pronounced your name properly, said, hello, and thank you very much for the webinar. For me, this was the first opportunity to engage with siblings of disabled people from all over the world. As I am currently writing my master's thesis on self-advocacy and disability, I wanted to ask how you go about advocating or conducting research on topics of disability and inclusion without having a disability yourself. How can your own experience and motivation help in your work without speaking on their behalf?
So I would like to take this on first. This is actually something that reflects something I feel very strongly about, because as my brother has severe autism, more and more we are being met with self-advocates who have very, very different lived experiences. I would say lived experiences that are not even remotely comparable to what my brother or someone with severe disabilities have. So we can start with that this is a spectrum, and there is room for everybody to share their opinions and expertise within that spectrum. Moreover, you don't necessarily have to experience something to have empathy and to care about what happens to your family members and use that to apply to your research. And it's actually not that this question is negative. I think it's incredibly well written and poignant and intelligent. However, in groups of other siblings, parents of persons with intellectual disabilities, we often feel silenced by self-advocates and feel unable to actually speak on behalf of our siblings because we don't have a disability. And then we are met with the response of, if you don't have a disability, how can you speak on this? Which is fair in many senses. However, I will use one specific example to illustrate how I can do this. When my brother was 18, he lost his legal capacity and we had to pursue guardianship in court. I spent a year and a half with my family petitioning for guardianship, going through all the legal processes, doing the appropriate tests, advocating for him. I took that and I decided to use it as the focus of my master's thesis. Now, my master's thesis was focused on constructing systems for persons with intellectual disabilities to have supported decision-making. That would be not removing my brother's capacity and putting him in guardianship as we did, but instead envisioning a better support system for my brother based off my lifetime living with him, my lifetime caretaking him, my lifetime volunteering and working with organizations with disabilities, my lifetime volunteering in his schools. I took all of that to create my own master's thesis, which advocated on how others might assist persons like my brother. So it is very, very much possible when you have a family member and you live with them every day to speak for them. And the thing is, the end of your question is very interesting without speaking on their behalf. For some of us, we actually have to speak on the behalf of our siblings because they are unable to advocate for themselves. So that just shows, again, the spectrum. Sometimes you have to, it's not speaking on their behalf, it's just standing up for your sibling and their basic rights. Thank you.
Thanks, Percy. Inge?
Yes, I think I'm very glad that Percy went first because I think I can give a slightly different answer to complement, not to go against. But also there are many questions in this one question. And the first thing I would like to note, please also don't assume we are not disabled. I have a disability. And sometimes we are described as, oh, the non-disabled sibling. And I'm like, no, okay, I don't have an intellectual disability. That is true. But that does not assume anything else about how we are and how we, but I get the question is how can we speak for people with intellectual disabilities without us ourselves having an intellectual disability? So to answer that, my sibling is a lot less complex support needs as Percy's sibling. So for me, and how I can tackle this on like my advocacy, but at the same time, making sure I would not say I am speaking on her behalf, but it's not speaking over her and it's not claiming her story as my own, but I can check it with her. So if I want to post something that on LinkedIn, for example, that she experienced, it's her story. And I ask, first of all, is it okay if I post? And then second of all, I ask, this is how I described it. Do you agree with that? And then second, third, I can't count anymore. I ask I ask little other questions and questions in a lot of different ways. Because to be honest, if you ask my sister, is this okay? She'll always say yes, because she's very conflict avoidant. So I have to ask it in a bazillion different ways on different moments when I speak with her. And that is just my personal relationship. But professionally, I work in an organization that represents people with intellectual disabilities. And our organization consists of both self-advocates who have intellectual disabilities and us who do not have intellectual disabilities. But we work similarly. Like we just make sure that we check with them on how and if they agree on what we are saying or which strategy we want to take. But at the same time, we are not only an organization representing people with intellectual disabilities, we also represent families exactly for all the reasons that Percy just shared. Because if we are only representing people with intellectual disabilities that we can discuss it with and ask them about their experience, then we are leaving out the people with complex support needs. We are leaving out the people who are nonverbal. And the people who can speak on their behalf, who can advocate for them, are their family members. Those are the best people who can do that. So it's maybe not the most straightforward answer to your question, but I hope I was able to provide some nuance, because we should not speak over them. And if it is possible, of course, it's nothing about them without them. But at the same time, we are leaving people out if we don't listen to family members.
Thank you so much, Inge and Percy. I'll assume nobody else has anything to add. I'm just looking at the chats that we've had. Thanks, Amos, for sharing your story about your sibling. Iman, apologies that we can't let people on the stage to come and share, their stories, but we would love to hear everyone's story. So if again you want to share that in the chat, please go ahead and share that in the chat. You also mentioned that you have that was Amos, several siblings who share their experiences and they guide teams in meetings. That's amazing. Iman, if you could share the organization, because you said the organization you're from, because you mentioned that in your organization you have a sibling community. That's what we're trying to promote in Inclusion International, and just connect with all the sibling communities that are out there. So I appreciate that. So one more question, quick round for the panelists, and again it's optional, so feel free to put up your hand if you want to answer. What would a world look like where siblings are fully seen, heard, and valued? Don't all raise your hands at once. Thanks, Inge.
I will bite off. I think, I think in a world where siblings are fully seen, heard, and valued, that means that the world is fully inclusive for our sibling with an intellectual disability. Because you cannot segregate them and make us seen, heard, and valued. That is not possible. So first of all, that this must be a very inclusive world, which I'm very happy that we finally got there. And I think it's a world where siblings have the chance to be as much part of the support in any stage of their life as they want to, without it being forced.
Yeah.
And that they can also choose and have it respected to have a quote unquote normal sibling relationship if that is what they prefer.
Thank you. Noor?
So yeah, I agree with Inke, and also to me personally, um, it would be also a space where we don't need to, I mean, I personally don't have to prove or justify myself or advocate for myself again and again in every spaces, going there and trying to prove myself and trying to show that, our roles matter. It's just trying to, I wouldn't need to work so hard to prove myself who I am and that it's important. It would just be a space where every voice matters, and we will all have a sense of belonging and the connection, which I think is really important to create the inclusive world. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Noor. Fael?
I mean, I agree with Noor and Inge, so I won't try to repeat what they said. I think to add on to this, especially in Africa, it means space. It means having that space, because I cannot tell you many spaces that I've been to where I've been asked, what are you doing here? You are not a person with a disability. Before I knew I had a disability, and even after, and you're not supposed to be here. So having that space for siblings to actually be able to voice out their opinions, to be able to give support, to be able to they themselves nurture themselves. So having that space for siblings. Yeah,
Thank you, Fael. Eva?
Yeah, it's hard not to be repetitive when the first thing that we need to do is so basic, which is just to offer support and acknowledgement. We need our perspectives to be actively sought and to be recognized and not just expected to adapt. Thanks.
Thank you, Eva. Percy?
So this is for those with family members with severe disabilities, the freedom to just take my brother anywhere in public without fearing for his safety, fearing for his life, fearing that we will be met with different looks. Of course, I do it anyways, but just a world where he can actually just exist and, hey, let's take him there. And I don't have to fear other people being ableist or potentially violent or worse. That for me would be a world where he is seen, heard, and valued, just able to exist safely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So before we close, I want to leave one thought out there with everything that we've said, which is as siblings, we're not asking to be centered instead of the person with a disability. What we're asking for is to be recognized as part of an existing system. And I think that distinction is really important to share. So I wanted to say thank you to all of our panelists, Inge, Noor, Aoife, Percy, Fael. Thank you for your honesty, for the clarity that you brought to, this panel, for sharing your experience. I mean, these are not easy conversations, and the way you all have shared today has really made it very meaningful. I mean, looking at the comments, thanks, Adrian from Ireland. He said, I'm really struck by the powerful testimonies that have been shared. And I think that's important. And that's one of the things we're hoping to get, from this webinar. Also, thank you to everyone who's joined us. At the end of this webinar, you will see a short survey. Please take a few minutes to complete it. It would really help us to understand, obviously, what's resonated with you, how we can continue to build work that reflects our sibling experiences properly. And if this, conversation has connected with you, please stay engaged. Follow Inclusion International to keep up with the work that we are doing in the siblings working group, because we are doing a lot of work and we are trying to create that world where we are seen, valued, and heard. Connect with, any one of our panelists and continue that conversation beyond today. And finally, whether you're a sibling or you're a professional, I will say take one thing from today and act on it this week. So thank you so much, everybody, and we will close the session here. Thanks all. Bye.